Most people don't quit a job because it's hard or challenging. They quit because it doesn't feel right. They're not connected to leadership. They feel invisible, the dumping ground, overmanaged, underdeveloped, emotionally drained. Challenging work builds us up, it builds you, but disrespect, being invisible, being controlled, breaks you down bit by bit. Anyone can identify the toxic leader that screams and curses and runs in and craps on everybody all the time. That's easy to identify. But the thing about toxic environments, toxic workplaces, is a lot of times they're pretty silent. They operate in silence and kind of eat at you a little bit over time. It reminds me of the frog that you place in cold water and you turn the heat up slowly, and before you know it, and before the frog knows it, he's boiled. And that's exactly what happens to us in a toxic workplace. By the time we notice, our confidence is smaller. We're just checking the box, waiting for somebody else to make decisions, operating out of fear a lot of the time, simply going through the motions, and certainly dreading Monday morning. That's exactly how good people shrink in toxic environment, a piece at a time. And sadly, our mind begins to normalize some of that. But we can do better. Today, I want to name the signs of that workplace that means it's time for you to go. But first, I want you to understand when I go through these signs, some of the signs are just simply oversights. It's where maybe leadership has good intentions, but they haven't been intentional. It's where we haven't had the right conversation. Generally, they're pretty fixable. But there's three big signs. The first two I'll cover, and the last one I cover in this video, which are deliberate choices by leadership and by the organization. These are choices, and these choices impact you, and they create a toxic workplace. But all of these signs, especially added together, raise the bar for whether you should stay at the organization. I just published a video on making better decisions before you quit your job, and it is linked right after this video if you'd like to watch it. The number one sign, this is one of the big three, you're not going to be surprised because it's flexibility. When flexibility is a promise that never arrives, that is a big sign. Year-end annual meeting and everybody comes together and they talk about flexibility and work-life balance, and yet your experience is very different from that. Control is everywhere. Micromanagement is all you feel. Your ability to really influence when, where, and how you work is almost non-existent. People seem to be rewarded for working longer versus getting the most done. Emails fly in all times of the night. And if you have that dreaded RTO, return to the office mantra, these are all deliberate choices. This is a big sign. Someone at the top of this organization has decided how little trust and how little control and how little autonomy. Someone at the top of this organization has made a decision about how much to trust you, how much control to exert over you, how little autonomy to give you. This is a deliberate choice and a deliberate decision. And you are experiencing the consequences of that decision every day as you try to manage your personal life and your career. That, my friends, is a very heavy sign. The second big sign is when recognition is rare. You see, genuine recognition is very specific, very timely, and a lot of times appreciation is expressed in the role you play in the job. If you never hear that, if you're not feeling that appreciation, if you're not getting those words of recognition, especially in a timely manner, you know that they're making a deliberate decision about how they feel about people. This is not a subtle message from leadership or from your organization. It's saying we see people as a resource. It's about plug and play, and we see that people are replaceable. Those are intentional decisions, another big sign. So here are some other signs I want you to be aware of. These are not as heavy as those first two. They're more fixable, generally talking about direct conversations, and it may be an indication that there may be a sign here where you need to have a direct conversation. But let's start with your own growth, your own promotions. If your promotions, if your timelines are foggy, if what you need to get done to move to that next level is always kind of unstated and unclear, if your development development seems to be happenstance versus calculated to make sure that you grow the skills you need to succeed in your career. This is a sign that management is not being intentional about career growth, which is the number one reason people leave organization, is personal growth. Another frequent sign is when mistakes are made. How does management react? How does leadership react? Is it all about blaming? Do you never get the benefit of good intentions? Are mistakes not utilized as a learning opportunity? A workplace and a culture that responds with punishment for mistakes is never going to be a learning culture. And in fact, fear becomes the unwritten rule. Just keep my mouth shut, keep my head down. Another sign that always scares me is when the wrong people seem to be winning. When it's the loud people, the people that the loudest in the room, even if they're basically wrong, they just carry the day. If it's the people that treat other people with disrespect and overmanagement. When you watch this happen over and over again, then you know the kind of values that the leadership and the organization are expressing. Another big sign is the turnover itself. Are you losing some coworkers on a pretty frequent basis? Do they just kind of slip out the back door? Because in toxic work environments, they usually leave pretty quietly. But the message they're leaving is anything but quiet. What they're saying is, I'm tired of shrinking at this place. I'm not going to shrink anymore. I can feel that water getting a little warm and I'm getting out while I can. Another sign is that well-being is talked about a lot. It's a slogan. Maybe we have a 1-800 number, but truly being stressed, overburdened, lonely is treated as personal failure rather than a problem with the organization. Now, all of these signs matter and they in totality can add up to be you need to quit. But here's that third sign that's a big sign that you need to consider whether you quit or stay. This sign is when feedback only flows in one direction. Guess which direction that is? Right, down. When all feedback is downward and critical. When criticism seems to be the conversation of the day, it says something. When you don't see leadership lead and asking for feedback to go up the other way to make the organization better, that's telling you something about what they value. They value systems and control over this organization getting better. Remember this, that a culture that doesn't get feedback going both ways can't improve as an organization. You can't raise the ceiling, and it's certainly going to limit your full potential. When you can't speak truth upward, you are not in a growth environment. You're in an ego protection environment, and it certainly won't be long until you'll be swimming if you're not already in mediocrity. This is a big sign. This is one of those signs that says, I need to quit. Now, those are a lot of the signs that signal a toxic workplace, but I want to talk a little bit about the danger of staying too long, because I've seen this happen over and over and over again, where people have stayed in those environments and I've watched them shrink as decision makers. I've seen their confidence fly out the window. I've seen them start to just go through the motions, to stop generating that innovation and to lose their passion about learning new things, having curiosity about new things, about their career track. And I hate to say this, but I think hopelessness sets in. Nothing dramatic, just a quiet acceptance. Have you felt that? Do you feel yourself compromising on some of the things you said you would never compromise on? All of this feeds that self-doubt that we all have is, am I good enough? Am I good enough to share my wisdom with someone like you, and is this important to your career? We all have that. And a toxic work environment feeds that, makes that fear bigger, makes it harder to step through that to your full potential. But obviously the severity of this depends on how long you stay and how severe that toxic environment is. But make no mistake, if you're working in an environment where a lot of these signs are present, you're in an environment in a workplace that's going to make you smaller. No role is worth your peace. No role is worth your ability to integrate your personal life and your career. No role is worth losing your passion. No role is worth losing your learning ability and your development. Your full potential is too important. Staying longer will not fix what leadership will not face. The signs we've talked about today are not accidental. especially the 3 big signs. They are very intentional policy decisions that control you, that impact you. Don't get used to the dysfunction. Don't be scared of having the hard conversations. Don't tolerate being invisible, overmanaged, drained emotionally. Open the windows, climb the stairs, get a better view. You aren't built to grind, you're built to grow. And that's what the workplace culture should do. It should grow you towards your full potential. Now, if you're in a workplace that's shrinking you, you can see that now because you're thinking about these signs. It's not worth waiting for another performance review. This is more important than your next performance review. You know the decision you need to make. And remember, if you're still vetting that decision, if you're trying to make the right decision, make sure you watch the video that's linked next. I promise you, you'll have a better career whether you stay or go if you watch that video. I wish you the best in this decision, but let's remember, whether you stay or go, what's our daily charge? Be better.